In chapter 3 of your research thesis or your um, paper, you will be required to tell us how you got your data and how you analyze the data you got. Now, most persons get stuck at this point where they are asked to discuss how they got data to investigate the issues in the topic they are working on. For a paper, this is what makes up the method section. And for a thesis, this is what makes chapter 3, your methods and your materials and method. And there are three ways you can basically get this data for your research. One is by setting up experiments. Yes, if you are in the science engineering fields, you set up experiments where you make some observations, where you take some measurements, you measure the length, you measure the height, you measure the intensity of light ray, you measure heat, and you use some instrument, set it up in a way that it can collect X and Y data, that is the independent and the dependent variable of your data. Say, for example, you are investigating how magnetic fields affect the germination of seeds. You need to set up an experiment where you create a magnetic field with maybe something like magnet. Using bar magnets, you create a port, two or more ports that you have. One port where you have the magnet, the bar magnet creating a magnetic field. You put some sand and you plant a seed. And in the other vessel, you just plant a seed without the magnet and give it 3 4 days. These seeds would germinate, depending if it is a monocoth or a dicoth, it would germinate, and you would investigate what is the length of the roots in the pot that has your magnet and the pot that has no magnet. Now, that's kind of method of getting data. It's by experiment, and it could move from very simple tools to very sophisticated tools in generating some simple house tools to extensive laboratory tools, or you can get data by setting up experiment. And it is the most common type, especially for the sciences and for people in engineering. Now, you can also set up experiments by gathering information from questionnaires. Yes, you could also set up a survey to gather information. You give out questionnaire, people fill, and that could be a set of experiment also, especially for those in the non-STEM area, those in business management, accounting, and all of that. You want to get perception of people on tax policies. You want to get perception of people on the policies on war and how they feel about what is happening in the Middle East and what is happening between Ukraine and Russia. You could put out questionnaires. That also is a form of experiment, and it would get you people's position, people's thoughts on what they feel, and from what they feel about the particular subject you are researching, you can get data for your chapter 3. Now, another way you could get data is from databases. Yes, and getting data this way is called using secondary data. And there are plenty secondary data, there are plenty databases you can get your secondary data for your research purposes. Now, I'll take you through some of them. Say you are a person in economics or finance and you want to get into data for world finance, data for certain websites allow you to get their data. For example, go to data.imf.org and you could find plenty data that you could just click and download. And if it is within the topic or subject area you are looking for. You could download it in a CSV file, open in your uh, MS Excel or SPSS, or even open in Python, and you can find information that you could use to write the method section of your paper. And so when you get data this way, we say you're getting data from a secondary source. That I would share with you how to even find topics from secondary sources. Yes, how to use secondary sources to find information or to create your topic using secondary sources of data. Now, that is not the only place. This is for those in economics, those in management, those in accounting who want to do economic forecasting, want to understand the trend of the financial position of the world and of their countries and of their regions and what have you, you can use this method to get your data. Now, the third, not on just the site, you can also go to WHO if you're, that's the World Health Organization, WHO has plenty information, plenty data for you to get their data. Just go to your browser and type who.int/data, and it will take you to its data platforms where you can harvest a whole lot of data on public health issues, on issues like tobacco consumption, malaria, mortality rate, birth control, birth mortality, and all of those places. In fact, they have a dedicated path where you can collect any kind of data whatsoever. And so these data are available as MS Excel files that you can just download and use it to um, find and research into the topics you have created around health and public health related issues. So if you are in public health, one good way to get data for your researches is via the WHO website. Now, this is not the only way you can also you can get data. Now, I've mentioned that you could get data by setting up experiments for the STEM, set up a measurable experiment that allow you measure a number of things, and for the social sciences and management, set up experiments that allow you work on questionnaires, give them out, set up in inferential statistics experiments, and all of those could be a way you can find and use data for writing the method section of your paper. Now, depending on the way you got your data, you would need to describe the materials you use and the methods. Say you are using a secondary data, you would get to tell us that you use a laptop and you went to this site and you navigated the site and got this data. The data had the following features, and you do feature analysis, and from there you would tell us, oh, from the data I got, I use MS Excel or SPSS or Python or R to analyze the data for this insight and that insight. And so that becomes how you write that kind of method section that involve getting the data from a secondary source. But there's one last way. This is commonly used for those who are in the theoretical part of research. Now, you can model a situation to give you dependent and independent variables. That is, you model the situation to get you um, such thing like y equal to something, 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 and of course, y being the dependent variable depending on what x would be. I'll give you a quick setup. Say you have x, and um, x is the special angles 15, special angles 15, special angle 30. Those of you in the sciences, you have an idea of what I'm discussing. So I have special angle 15, special angle 30. I can put it together and drag it down until it gets me about 360. That's too much, that's beyond 360. 360 because I am looking at one complete cycle of revolution. So I have that 360 and I would go to Y, the dependent variable, a variable depending on X. So if I can model a physical situation in that form, I can get data, I could plot graphs, I could find trend using that method. So let me give you an example. I would put equal to um, sine of what is in A minus cot. There's something called cotton. Yes, is minus the cot of what is in A minus 30 degrees or 2 pi or 360 or whatever is in your mind. You hit on enter and you have that value, drag it down, and you have all the values whatsoever on that particular um, thing. So you could just hold on these two, fake it to go to data or go to insert. You would see some this there, and you have a plot, so to say. And that is how you this method of getting data is basically used for theoretical research. So in theoretical research, we try to model a physical occurring situation to depend on two variables, a dependent variable and an independent variable. The dependent variable being y variable and the independent variable being x. And we can set up that in a simple simulation environment to generate data. It could just be equations, you put it to Python, you put it to MS Excel, like I've just shown you here, and it would populate data that would show you that, oh, the trend is a sinusoidal kind of curve, or it is a sine graph, and from which you could tell that, oh, at this angle, this the peak values or the amplitudes were at this value and this value, and that way you create your data. Now, there are also specialized simulation tools. If you're in physics, chemistry, biology, there are tools referred to like MD, for example. Molecular docking is a tool. There is quantum espresso. There is a Gaussian um, modulator that allows you put equations and it will model the structure of the equation, allowing you to see the angle of torsional angle, bond angles from which you can do some work around it and find data for yourself. And so these are the three ways by which you find data and use data to write your methods section. In my next video, I will be telling you how to write the method section for each of these method you got data. If you got data by experiment, how do you write the method section? If you got data by a secondary source, how do you write the method section? And if you got data from a simulation or from an equation or from setting up x and y variables like I have just shown, how do you put out the method section? This is what we are discussing, and I want you to start putting this to work. If you're in sciences, put up experiments. If you're in economics management, get to secondary sources and generate your data, or put up questionnaires and all of that. Now, this is the most important part of research, because if you have not been able to find how you would generate data to investigate the issues, the question research question variables you've raised, you may not be able to go forward with the research. And so getting data is a very important part of research writing. Now drop your questions down below on what you think about finding data or the issues you have been having with finding data. Let's get to solve it in our next video.